Welcome to the Shanehofmanshow, episode 6. We got a lot to talk about today. We're reviewing Batman Caped Crusader, and we got to go over SummerSlam and the fallout of that. So I hope you guys are excited. We're just going to dive into it today. Let's get started. Okay, so SummerSlam. Now, if you missed SummerSlam, let me tell you, you did miss a pretty damn good event. It was really good. We're going to go down through match by match for the matches I want to talk about. And we're going to talk about them, and we're going to talk about what I think about the outcome of that match. And starting out, we of course have to start out with the Women's Championship, Liv Morgan versus Rhea Ripley. And this was incredible. It is the payoff of payoffs. Here's what I'll say. Before we actually get into the match and the individual matches themselves, the overarching theme for SummerSlam, in a sense, was predictability. I had a 100% prediction rate for this pay-per-view, and I think a lot of people did. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that's a very good thing, and I think that's a good thing because they gave the fans essentially what the fans wanted, and they told the narratives that made sense. They didn't try to swerve you. They didn't try to just completely swerve you and do something completely different. They went with what made sense. So we get into Rhea Ripley and Liv Morgan here. And they did exactly what you thought was going to happen. Dominic Mysterio, at the end, turns on Rhea Ripley and kisses Liv Morgan. Now, I don't think we get to that payoff feeling as good if the match doesn't go the way it does. First of all, the performers were incredible. Rhea and Liv were just incredible in their roles. They put on a phenomenal match, but Dominic outside the ring was where the magic really happened. Because there's a part in the match where Rhea's got a chair and she's going to destroy Liv with it, and Dom jumps up and he grabs the chair. And he does it and frames it as, you can't win the title that way. And he's right? You can't win the title that way, Mama. You can't hit her with that. You're not gonna hold the title that way. And he frames it, and WWE frames it as Dominic is looking out for Rhea. But then you get later into the match where Dominic slips a chair underneath the ring, and then Liv Morgan hits her move, hits the finisher, boom, drops Rhea face first off the chair, pins her and wins. And that's when you know, as Dominic's smiling ear to ear, oh, he's been on Liv's team this whole time. And the way Liv played it off, as she was shocked. So maybe they weren't in cahoots with it. Maybe Dominic had this plan on his own. But regardless, match went perfect. Dominic Mysterio played his part perfectly. The betrayal was perfect, and Rhea sold this at the end like she just got dumped, which if you don't know, she's dating Buddy Murphy in real life. But she played it off as if she just got dumped, and it was heartbreaking, and she's so sad, and it was phenomenal. That was a phenomenal way to start off the show. And Dominic played his part so well. Rhea played her part so well. Liv played her part so well. I mean, just incredible in all aspects. Which moves us to down the show, which I want to talk about next, which is the Intercontinental Championship match between Sami Zayn and Braun Breaker. And they did exactly, again, what I thought they were going to do. And I'm going to say why I think they're going to do it. The match only lasted about 5 minutes, and Breaker just killed Sami. Here's why I think this is the right choice for a few reasons. One, Breaker needs a championship. He's amazing. Now you're going to give him that IC title run. We're going to build Breaker up to be a superstar. Excellent. 2, given on what happens later in the evening, which we're going to get to, this was the best direction for Sami because I think they're pivoting where he's going to go. We're going to talk about that later. So, it was only a 5-minute match, but it established Breaker as this dominant force that he needs to be. Didn't make Sami look weak at all. Braun Breaker's incredible. Incredible match that they had there. Switch is great. To the United States Championship match. And this match, it was great. It was good. It was really good. And obviously at the end of it, LA Knight comes out on top. Perfect. Perfect decision. In his own hometown, Logan Paul loses. He still looks like an asshat. It was great. The match itself, really good. Both competitors doing incredible. Logan Paul is a superhero, and he did this weird, the most amazing, I don't even know what it was. I think it was a shooting star that I've ever seen. He jumped off the top rope, did a weird corkscrew. It was incredible the way he did it. It was so smooth and go watch it yourself. I can't even describe it in justice. It was so good. Both of them were just putting out all the stops there. Obviously, the shenanigans with Logan Paul's goons trying to get involved, handing Logan the brass knuckles. Ultimately, though, LA Knight stopped him, hit him with the BFT, pinned him 1, 2, 3. LA Knight is your new U.S. champion. Some could say this is long overdue. Some would say it's the right time. Yeah, where do I fit? About a year ago, he was really in main event territory. So some would say it's overdue, but you know what? He's going to go on this great run with the U.S. title now, and he's going to just set himself up to be in world championship positions later on. I think this was the right decision. I think this is where he fits in the card right now. He's going to make a great U.S. champion, and he should be like the Gunther of U.S. title champions, where he's just going to hold that thing forever, but he's a fighting champion. He's a good guy. I think it was a great decision. Yeah. Moving on, we've got Nia Jax versus Bayley. I'm not going to lie, tuned out during this one. I made food. But not that I didn't care about the match, but out of all the matches on the card, this was the one I wasn't really looking much forward to. But essentially, they're battling it out. Tiffany Stratton runs out, causes the distraction, pretends like she's going to cash in her Money in the Bank. Nia Jax ends up just brutalizing Bayley, pins her, and she's the new women's champion. Nia Jax deserves it. She deserves it. This was her first SummerSlam. I was happy to see her walk away with the win. She deserves it. She's been working hard for it. She's been a really good performer as of late and a really good heel. So I think they made the right call here. We'll have to see where the story goes, but her and Tiffany, obviously that betrayal down the line is going to be perfect. It's going to be great. So I got nothing to say about that. Excuse me. So that was phenomenal. Moving toward, of course, we have Drew McIntyre and CM Punk. This was great. It was CM Punk's first WWE singles contest in over 10 years. So there was like kind of a lot riding on it. But you know what? He did a great job. A lot of people said he was gassed. Listen, he was recovering from injury. I've been in the wrestling ring. And I can tell you it's freaking tiring. Okay. I don't care how much cardio you do. I could run like 3, 4, 5 miles and be fine. When you step in that ring, it's a lot of anaerobic cardio. Okay. It is hard. You're doing a lot of crap. It's like doing a burpee every 5 seconds. It's not easy, okay? So people saying that, just, you got to understand, this stuff's difficult, okay? And he's older, and he took a lot of time out, and he really wasn't that gassed, okay? He did a great job. He was fine. I didn't even really, did he look visibly tired? Yes, but so did Logan Paul. Nobody's giving him any shit for it. And you know what? Everyone looks visibly tired because they're doing a high-intense cardio workout. That's basically what it is. And he did a great job. He was fine. I couldn't even really... Yes, he looked visibly tired, but he wasn't like he was slowing during the match or having to stop some of his spots because of it. He was just tired. It's normal, right? But these guys just started out the match by killing each other. And Seth Rollins is the special guest referee. Going back to what I was talking about a few days ago, now I am happy with this decision. Now I understand where they're going with it. Now it makes full sense. I just needed to see it. And the reason is because Rollins basically just let them kill each other at the start of the match. They're just punching the crap out of each other. They're throwing each other into steps. Rollins isn't counting outside the ring at all. He doesn't even really get involved until Drew McIntyre gets a chair. And he's like, Seth, just turn around, Seth. Just turn around. You want this too. Just turn around. Let me kill him. Let me kill him, Seth. Seth pretends like he's going to turn around and let it happen. And, of course, he turns back around. He grabs the chair. He says, you're going to earn it. For once in your life, you're going to earn it. And he's playing that part real well. But then, of course, there's a ref bump that happens with Seth. He gets, like, caught. He goes down. Punk goes to cover McIntyre. Rollins is late to the count. And CM Punk is now mad at Rollins. He's saying, you're trying to screw me. Rollins is like, no, I was down. And there comes a point in the match where the bracelet that Drew McIntyre is holding from CM Punk gets knocked loose, and Rollins picks it up and just puts it on his wrist, right? He puts it on his wrist to get it out of the way, and Punk sees that and just goes berserk. And the theme of this match is CM Punk got distracted by that bracelet, by Seth Rollins, and cost himself the match. Because, of course, when he saw Rollins with that bracelet, he picked up Seth Rollins' special guest referee, go to sleep to the ref. And at that point, Drew McIntyre had the chance to recover. He kicks Punk in the balls. He hits him with the Claymore. And Rollins, who barely knows where he is, manages to make the 3 count. And CM Punk loses the match. Now, here's where we go from here. Obviously, Punk is not done with McIntyre. but this sets the stage to where Rollins and Punk can finally have their feud. Do I think the championship should somehow still be involved? I do. How are they going to do that? They're not going to do that for a while, and we'll get into that now because Gunther is obviously now champion. But they're at the place now where they don't need it. They don't need it. CM Punk and Seth Rollins now have what the fire they need to make that feud burn. As for Drew McIntyre, where does he fit in all this? I think maybe now you could do a CM Punk and Seth Rollins match and maybe make McIntyre the special guest referee. I don't know. But what I do know is, McIntyre wins, thankfully, because he needed something. Maybe now what you do is you allow Punk and Rollins to have their feud and Gunther finally gets a match with McIntyre. Maybe McIntyre ends up beating Gunther and you can bring the World Heavyweight title back in that way. I don't know. I don't know if you should do that because Gunther just won the thing. I feel like he should go on a long reign as this dominant force on Monday night, but I don't know. That's something they can do. Maybe the Wyatt Six, right, are going after Gunther now for being a dick to his family. I don't know. I don't know the direction they're going to go in with that now. I don't know if you even want to bring the championship back into CM Punk, Drew McIntyre, Seth Rollins stuff. I don't know. We're going to have to see. Maybe you're just building to just this big bad blood triple threat match, which now I can see it. So overall, I think the direction they went in was great. I think CM Punk screwing himself was great. Drew McIntyre still has that bracelet, so tonight is Raw. We're going to be able to figure out what happens there. I'm super excited for that. All around, great. This one was great, which leads us to the World Heavyweight Championship match where, yes, Gunther won, and Gunther won because the Judgment Day just completely imploded. It's Gunther versus Priest, and they're having when I say phenomenal match, I mean phenomenal match. And Damian Priest really came into his own here. And I think if you were going to take the belt off him, this was the way to do it. Where obviously Finn Balor comes out and he's pretending like he's cheering on Priest. Priest hits he gets up on the ring apron, right? Gunther hits him with the big boot. So you think Balor's on Priest's side, that there's no coordinating there. Damian gets pissed because his friend got hit. He hits the South to Heaven chokeslam. He hits the whatever, the Final Testament, that's what it's called, and he gets him near the ropes and he's going to pin him. And then Finn Balor jumps up on the apron and tosses Gunther's leg up on the bottom rope, saving Gunther. And Damian he's like, why did I not win? Right? He's all confused. He sees the replay on screen. And for the rest of the match that he's in, he just wants to kill Balor. And this ultimately ends up costing him as Gunther takes advantage and locks him into a guillotine, a sleeper. And ultimately, Priest tries to fight out of it. He gets out of it. He tries to go and kill Balor again. Gunther again hits him with the powerbomb, puts him back in the sleeper, wins the title. Judgment Day is officially imploded. Priest is no longer champion. This was the way to do it. Because now we're going to get now we allow the Judgment Day storyline to flourish, and Gunther can move on forward with the championship. Who's going to verse him? I don't know. I think there's two roads you can go down here. Maybe there's the Drew McIntyre one, and CM Punk can screw him again. I don't know. I'd love to see Jey Uso get involved in it again, but he's not going to. We're going to talk about that in a minute as to why. I don't know who you put on Gunther as an opponent right now. Maybe Priest gets another rematch. Maybe we do Balor. I don't know. Maybe this time Priest screws over Balor, right? I don't know what you do this time around with the World Championship. It's going to be interesting to see what they do for the World Heavyweight Championship. Maybe you could do Ilya Dragunov. There's a lot of ways I guess you can go with the World Heavyweight title. We're going to have to see what they do on Raw tonight. But yeah, I think that was the best decision. We cemented Gunther as champion now, so phenomenal. Which brings us to the Bloodline Rules match between Cody Rhodes and Solo Sikoa. And this was phenomenal. From start to finish, this was just great. Both guys were doing a great job. The whole theme of the match was Solo Sikoa did his homework, and he knows all of Cody's moves, and he's just stopping Cody at every turn. They really tried to get Solo to feel like a big deal here. Also, Cody had like a great entrance with his dog because his dog is too old to go on the road with him now. So that was nice to see, right? Little homage to Cody's dog. But this match was phenomenal. And of course, Cody is about to beat Solo. The Bloodline come out. And as the Bloodline is beating the crap out of Cody, of course, then Kevin Owens makes his return. Randy Orton makes his return. Everyone comes out except Jacob Fatu, who, as Cody's about to win again, right? Jacob Fatu comes out, just destroys Cody, puts him through the announce table. Um, and just as Cody's about to lose, he kicks out, he hits a Cody cutter, he starts making a comeback. There's a double down, both guys are down. And then you hear Roman Reigns' music, and this crowd lost their fucking mind. This crowd lost their mind. It was incredible. They just started going crazy. Roman comes in. It looks like for a minute he's going to Superman punch Cody. He doesn't. He hits Solo Sikoa. He comes out in a shirt that says OTC, probably meaning Original Tribal Chief. He Superman punches Solo, spears Solo. Cody and him are looking at each other the whole time. Cody hits a crossroads on Solo Sikoa, pins him. That's it. And they keep having this stare down. And the lights go out, right? The cameras go off. Roman Reigns makes his big return. Now we bring it back to the start there to where I think Sami Zayn and Jey Uso fit in, which is, I think they fit in right here, which is Roman's going to now assemble the old bloodline to take on the new bloodline. We won't know that till SmackDown. Maybe we'll see it tonight a little bit, but I doubt it. Maybe we'll have a tease about it, but this was awesome. It was great to see Roman again. He looked great, and it was everything it should have been. It was phenomenal. So we're going to have to see what happens. I'm very excited to see what happens tonight on Raw, and I'm very excited to see what happens on SmackDown. SummerSlam did a great job at, again, it was predictable, but it told the narratives it needed to tell. It felt like a big deal. It felt huge. A lot of important things happened. 4 title changes happened, so that was huge. And now we're going to see the direction they go. And you know what? I like what they did. So now we're just going to have to see, do these stories pay out? What new stories do we tell? Batman Caped Crusader dropped on Amazon Prime. And we're going to have 2 reviews this episode. We're going to have a spoiler-free review and a spoiler review. Okay? This is going to be the spoiler-free review. And I'm really passionate about Batman. Batman is, besides Superman and Spider-Man, of course, Batman is one of the most influential fictional characters on my life. And when it comes to getting Batman right, there's a few things that Batman needs in order to make sure that he's done right. First is understanding Batman as a character, what drives him to be Batman and why. The next thing is understanding Batman's lines and the rules that he has. And finally, can you tell a good narrative, understanding the Batman character? Can you utilize his moral compass, his moral code, his strengths, and his weaknesses, and tell a narrative surrounding that? There are things Batman Caped Crusader does right, and there are things Batman Caped Crusader does wrong. And unfortunately, the wrong things kind of hurt the overarching plot for me. Now, let me say I like this show. I do. I love elements about this show, actually. There are certain things I love, and there are certain things I don't love. I understand this is not supposed to be Batman the Animated Series. And I understand that it's not trying to be the definitive version of Batman. But what that version of Batman is the animated series. What pisses me off is it could have been. It had potential to be. Had it just done a few things right, it could have not just been a spiritual successor, but a spiritual successor that actually succeeded in taking the notch up to the next level. And perhaps shelving shelving the animated series as the definitive version of Batman. But because of the changes it wants to make, it doesn't. Because Batman the Animated Series, at the end of the day, doesn't just understand and focus on Batman, but it has respect for Batman's world. It has respect for what makes Batman's world work. It has respect for the comics that came before it, continuity that came before it. It might put its own spin on it in certain areas, but it does it without making drastic changes to the fundamentals of the Batman mythos and world. Batman Caped Crusader, in order to stand out and be different, makes unnecessary changes that it doesn't need to make, and therefore sacrifices its spot in being the definitive Batman. Not only does it sacrifice its spot, but it sacrifices its overall arcing story and plot in the process by altering its characters. Now, I'm not going to get into the spoilers of that yet. I will. But there's a few things I want to talk about. First, I want to talk about what this show did right. Without getting into spoilers here again, the show does Batman right. If you are looking for a show, and I know that sounds contradictory for what I just said, but I'm going to explain myself here. Batman and Bruce Wayne as a character are done well here. I'll get more into that in my spoiler review, but Batman and Bruce Wayne are done very well. The problem comes in my spoiler review when I get into that. For as well as they're done right, they're not the focus of the show, which is going to sound weird. But stick around for my spoiler review, or go watch the show and then stick around for the spoiler review later and you'll understand. Right? They are great and done well, but not the focus of the show. The voice actor who plays Batman does a fantastic job. Is he Kevin Conroy? No, but nobody's Kevin Conroy. But he does a fantastic job. He hits the nail on the head between both Bruce Wayne and Batman, and he does it very, very well. Batman in this show had potential to be definitive Batman. There's just a couple things I didn't like about it that we'll discuss. The music in the show is wonderful. I got nothing to say about that. Nothing to say about that. Music is amazing. The animation is fantastic. It is beautiful. It is very reminiscent of Batman the Animated Series, of course, because it's a spiritual successor. And it's very reminiscent of that style of animation. And I love the animated style here. I think it does well. I love the look of everybody in the show. I love the look of Batman especially. I think his costume looks great. I love the look of it. The timepiece set in the 40s has its advantages, being the look of the show is great, and its disadvantages, which we'll go over later on, is to which there's a lot of modernisms that take place in the 40s that make it feel like it's not the 40s and pull you out of the show. If you were going to set the show in the 40s, keep the show to the 40s. But for some reason, the show has the aesthetic of the 40s with the technological limitations of the 40s without the culture and the period piece of how humans talk and interact in the 40s. There's a lot of 2020 crap and modern dayisms that are put into the 40s. Why make it the 40s then? So that's another detractor from the show. Is it's supposed to be this period piece that doesn't abide by the period piece rules. When you spin on that as well, when we take a peek at the characters, this is where the show falls for me. Because other than Batman, in my opinion, these characters are just not done right. A lot of them are completely unidentical to their original classic takes on the characters, which some might say that's the point. But for me, it is a detractor. Because I get it, it's an Elseworld story. I get it, they're trying to do something different. But when you alter the characters like this, you have to alter the plot because characters don't behave how they usually would behave, or they're not even the same as they usually are. And when you're trying to tell a Batman story, sometimes you just want to see classic Batman characters doing classic Batman things. But that's not what happens because a lot of these characters, other than Batman, aren't the classic versions of themselves. And so you get these elements of Batman interacting with these characters, and not only is it foreign, but it's distasteful. Because I wanted to see Batman interact with these characters in a different way, in the classic way. And so I wasn't a fan of a lot of the changes they made with these characters. And that leads us to the plot. Unfortunately, the plot, due to the characters being certain ways that the way they are, the plot has to go in that direction to match the character arcs. And for me, while there are elements of the detective noir stuff that I like, and there are elements of the plot that I like, and there are elements of the criminal underground and stuff like that that I really enjoy, the way that these characters are pushed and utilized makes me not like the direction of the overall plot as much. And again, I like this show and I wanted to love this show. But unfortunately, the way that they utilize some of the characters, most of the characters actually just missed for me and really put a damper on my enjoyment of the show. Batman does a great job. Batman's psychology is hit 10 out of 10 home run. But the way they tried to tell this story is altered for me because they altered classic characters and I wanted classic Batman interactions. So I highly recommend you watch the show because, again, there are elements of the show that I like, but there are elements of the show that I dislike. We're going to be able to get all into it next in the spoiler section if you're sticking with me. So if you're sticking around, we're going over spoilers now. If you haven't seen the show yet, they're like 24 minutes an episode, 10 episodes. Go check it out. Go watch it. Then come back. Our spoiler review. And this is where I could really, really, really dive into it here. So we talked about how characters are changed and that alters the plot. There's a few things I want to hit home first. I want to elaborate more on the good, right? So we're going to start out here with they got Batman right. The discrepancy between Bruce Wayne being the billionaire playboy and Batman being this dark, brooding vigilante, knocked out of the park, 10 out of 10 home run. I mean, we'll get into specifics now of how in episode 1, Treacherous Waters, right? We'll be discussing that a little more further. We really get to see how Batman, at the start of the episode, right, is this detective that only cares about the mission. He even shuts people out so much as Batman that he doesn't even call Alfred Alfred. He calls Alfred Pennyworth. He doesn't think of Alfred as a lifelong friend, which I felt strongly that I disliked earlier, but at the end of the season, his character arc kind of comes to a close to where he actually calls him Alfred. So I understand what they were going with there. So you know what? Fine. I'll give that one a pass. I found it a little weird, like this dude raised you and you're going to be super cold to him, but whatever. I get it. He only cares about this mission. And similar to the show, Matt Reeves' The Batman movie, which is my favorite Batman live action movie now, did the same thing. So I can't have too much criticism on it. You know what? I understand what they were going for. You get a pass for that. And I really like Alfred in the show too. But he's super cold when he's Batman. And even when he's just alone out of the costume with Alfred, he has the Batman voice. He is Batman. He's not Bruce Wayne. But the second he steps into the public light, you could see he puts on this fake, and he hates it. You can tell he hates it. He puts on this fake smile, and he's like, I'm the playboy. Hey, ladies, let's go grab a Harvey. We don't have a drink, right? He gets on this, he gets into public. He gets on this boat, on this cruise with a bunch of people, and he's acting like this billionaire jackass playboy, right? But it's all a disguise so he can continue to be the Batman behind closed doors. They nailed it. They nailed it so perfectly. They did such a good job with it. And I have to credit them on that. They got Batman right. So if they got Batman right, why is this show not top tier? What happened? Well, just because you get Batman right doesn't mean you get Batman's world right. And they failed. They did not get the classic characters of Batman right, and I am very disappointed in it. I understand this was supposed to be something different. I understand they were going for an Elseworlds take. That doesn't change the fact that they drastically changed a lot of classic characters, in my opinion. Now, I'm not a big... they race swapped Jim Gordon in the Batman movie, and it's still my favorite movie. As long as you can play the part correctly, I don't care. All right? However, they change Jim Gordon and Barbara Gordon so much here that they're not just race swapped, but Barbara Gordon's like 25 and she's a DA, and Jim Gordon, who's the police commissioner, is now the father of like an adult Barbara Gordon, who is essentially the main character of the show. And the show is called Batman Caped Crusader, not Barbara Gordon and Batman. And so when you make this giant change to Barbara Gordon, who her role now is essentially to be Jim Gordon, Batman interacts with her more than he does with actual Jim Gordon. And we don't get that classic alliance between Jim Gordon and Batman because Barbara Gordon is now Jim Gordon. I didn't like this switch. I'm not saying you can't make Barbara Gordon this badass. For hell, she becomes Batgirl at a certain point. She's going to be a badass. But they did it in a way to where they just made her Commissioner Gordon. They made her like the main character of the show. And I didn't want to see Batman interact with future Batgirl the same way he interacts with Jim, or he's supposed to interact with Jim. They really almost kind of cut Jim Gordon's character out to knees to why is he here? I don't understand why he's needed. His daughter does everything he would do. He's just here because, look, it's Jim Gordon, guys. He doesn't have a real character arc. Sure, he deals with and we'll talk about this, he deals with the corruption of the police force, but so does Barbara. And she does it better than him. So what's the point if you're going to make Barbara Jim? I understand the switch they wanted to make. If they wanted to make Barbara Gordon have more of an adult role and more of a DA office role, I get that. But you can make her character not like Jim Gordon. Fine. You want to make that giant switch and make Barbara the DA and she's her own involved in crime. Great. You can do that. But maybe make it so that she's not essentially another Commissioner Gordon. Maybe make it so that her worldviews are different and she likes the Batman, right? Or that she sees something different in the Batman and she convinces Jim to like him. But they don't do any of that. It's a really strange thing here to where you alter the classicness of Barbara Gordon to where I can't see her becoming Batgirl. She just looks like this badass right away. Maybe make it so that she's not a badass. She sees the badass Batman and wants to become a badass. Make Jim an overprotective father over her and not wanting her to get involved in all this stuff. Him seeing the Batman and saying, you know what, maybe this guy's not so bad. Have Jim and Batman have their usual interactions, and there you go. Now Barbara is on the outskirts of this, but she slowly is brought in because she's captivated by how amazing the Batman is and she wants to be more like him. And her father doesn't want her to become like this, right? That's stuff you can do. But instead, they just interject badass Barbara here who just solves everybody's problems, and her and Batman are all buddy-buddy, and he gets in touch with her before he even gets in touch with Jim. I wanted a classic story of Jim and Batman where Jim sees that this guy who the rest of the police force doesn't like and thinks he's a bad vigilante who should be put in jail. And Jim sees, you know what, maybe he's calling out the corruption here. And he and Batman have this relationship where you're the only good cop, Jim, right? I wanted to see more of that, more of them talking, more of them building that relationship. We got none of it. We got none of it. We get one scene of it in episode 4 where Jim is going to put Batman under arrest and he sees he's holding a bunch of kids. And that's when he goes, oh, okay. Maybe this guy's not so bad. But that's it. That's it. There's no build-up to it. It's a very frustrating thing when you alter characters like that. And Jim's really not even acting like Jim. Sure, he's that cop that's not corrupt. He's not bent. But even so, he's controlled by the mayor. All of his decisions are controlled by the mayor, and he can't make certain decisions because the mayor just tells him what to do. There's no Jim is under the mayor's thumb, but he goes out the back door and talks to Batman on the roof. There's none of that. There's none of those classic Batman things. At least not yet. But I wanted to see that. I wanted season 1 to be that. I didn't want it to be the Barbara Gordon show, where Barbara Gordon is the main center focus of everything. And it's frustrating in that end. They also change other characters. The Penguin. Again, listen, is it the biggest deal in the world that the Penguin was gender swapped? No. She's a girl now, great. But why? It was just to throw a shock ball in there to say, look, we did something different. The Penguin's a girl now. She's Oswalda. In a sense, it worked because she was brutal to her real-life kids because once she figured out that she got it wrong, but she thought one of her kids was selling her out to another mob boss. So she puts him in a suitcase and throws him in the ocean. That was cool. I liked it. Yeah. I guess that was for the better because you were able to add an element of she's a horrible person and a horrible mother who will kill her own children. I like that. So if there's any change I like, it's that. But did we have to change a classic character to do that? Did we have to? Again, out of all of them, that's the least on my list of the ones I didn't like. That was probably the best one that they did do, but they do it with everybody. They did it with Harley Quinn who actually I talked about maybe being changed for the better. The last time I went through the trailer, I said maybe this was the change for the better. And you know what? I still kind of stick to that. I do stick to that. They made her more menacing, and she uses her psychology background as a weapon. My problem is she only does it with a specific type of like these evil billionaires. These guys are the evil ones, and it's okay to psychologically torture them. But the other criminals in the show are treated as heroes in a sense. And it just doesn't sit well with me. If you're going to portray one person as a villain, we want to, or this demographic as villains, we want to portray the villains as villains. And I'm going to get into that now as we go over Two-Face. Two-Face is made to be this dickhead at the start of the show. And I hate it. He's more sympathetic, and he turns out to be a better guy after he becomes Two-Face, which is dumb. It is a dumb. He literally dies by protecting Barbara Gordon and taking a bullet for her. And it would be one thing if he was redeeming himself because he was a good man who fell from grace after he becomes Two-Face and fights the demons, but he was never the good guy. I don't understand the discrepancy between the two faces. He's a dick at the start of the show, he's a dick throughout the show, and then he becomes a good dude after he becomes Two-Face. It makes no sense. And instead of getting Batman versus Two-Face, essentially, which we do get in episode 9 a bit, the finale is Batman and Two-Face against the corrupt cops of Gotham. Which, you know what? I don't hate, but it wasn't earned. I like the direction of that. Again, I wanted to like the plot. But the decision to make Harvey a dick before he becomes Two-Face, it's not earned by the time we get there. I can't get behind it because I never got behind Harvey. Same thing with Harley Quinn. They try to make her this sympathetic character in episode 5 when I can't get behind her as this sympathetic character because she's torturing people. She's not a sympathetic character. I don't care. These guys are evil and money. Great. She's torturing them. Illegally. In a place where she calls her playpen. Well, she's physically and psychologically torturing these people, making them dress up a certain way and just write till their fingers can't hurt anymore and stuff like that. It's just, I can't support. How are you going to tell me this was the good guy just trying to do the right thing? She tortured people and kidnapped them. And they didn't physically break the law. It's not like she's torturing criminals. She's torturing, in her eyes, perceived criminals. That they're wealthy, so they're bad because they're cancers on society. Sure, maybe they did some bad things with money, and she feels that the justice system lets them get away with it, so she incorporates her own brand of justice, like Batman. The difference is Batman goes after actual criminals, and she's going after perceived criminals, and the audience is supposed to side with her because. And another thing is she's an open lesbian, along with the cop, Detective Montoya, which, you know what? Fine. If this was a modern times period piece, sure. Yeah, that should be done in comics, like Poison Ivy and the original Harley Quinn. But guess what? This is supposed to be set in the 40s. And they're girls openly kissing in public. That didn't happen in the 40s. If we're going to put something in the 40s, make it stick with the 40s. Otherwise, just put this in modern times, and that criticism goes away. But it's an Elseworlds, and it's fictional, so who's to say in this universe that in the 40s there wasn't more? Okay, fine, great. But it pulls me out of it, because when you say something set in the 40s, I'm assuming it's set in the time period of the 40s. And that impacts the show for me, because we're pushing this stuff into that stuff, into the superhero stuff. And again, Harley Quinn probably was changed for the, I would almost argue, the better, because we made her more menacing. However, it's just too far from the classic Harley that I'm just not a fan. I wasn't a fan of changing her so drastically. It didn't sit well with me. The changes they made just didn't sit well with me. The only exception I can kind of think of was Clayface. They did him in episode 2 very well. He was this tortured soul who looked ugly. Um, the guy comes up, gives him a serum, and he decides to play. Even that, no, I changed my mind. I didn't even like that. I liked it. I thought the episode was cool. I thought the detective stuff around it was cool. But he just decides to play the part of villain. Um, Again, all very just sudden. Like, why? I just want to play the part of villain now because my crush rejected me. Great. I like the look of Two-Face. I like the murder mystery surrounding it. It was cool. But again, his motivation for becoming Two-Face, Clayface, motivation for becoming Clayface is just, the lines are blurred. It was just weird. The best episodes to me were episode 3 with Catwoman. Everything done there was perfect. And then episode 8, which is the Nocturnal girl, right? The evil vampire girl. And here's what I liked and didn't like about that. Going back to episode 3 real quick, though, everything done with Catwoman was perfect. Her characterization, her being inspired by Batman, her chemistry with Bruce Wayne, even Bruce Wayne going to therapy with Harleen Quinzel, exploring his origin more. I loved episode 3. That was great. All that was fantastic. Getting into episode 8 with that was also another one of my favorite ones because we got to see this tortured soul who doesn't want to kill people, but her powers are she needs to drain them for energy. We also got to see Batman. We got to see his emotional side dealing with her, and we also got to see these kids who go by the names of Dickie, Carrie, and Stephanie. I didn't like this decision. I understand it. Cool Easter egg. Look, it's all the little Robins at the same orphanage. Does that mean we're not doing a Robin now? Because that would really upset me. Or are we just going to do Tim Drake and make him the Robin? Because obviously all these other kids are, unless they're all just going to become Robin now. I don't know. And Batman's somehow going to meet all of them again in the future. Kind of ruin their origin stories. We know we're not getting a Dick Grayson origin story, which sucks. So I wasn't a fan of that, but I was a fan of the episode as a whole. And that's what I got to say about the series, man. It does certain things right. It does the Batman character right. The music is done well. I love the detective noir stuff that they inserted in there. I understand where they were trying to go with the plot, but because of the changes to the characters, it affected how I felt about the plot. And give the show, if you haven't watched the show, obviously I spoiled essentially almost everything for you. I'm going to get to the final my final thoughts on the show with the final scene here in a second. But if you watch this, don't take what I say as gospel. Go watch the show yourself. But in case you want to not be spoiled on this last thing, even though you've been spoiled on everything else, you can go. But essentially, at the end of the show, right, obviously, Harvey Dent in the final episode, takes the bullet for Barbara Gordon, Batman. There's this scene I really love where Flask, that corrupt cop, loses his gun. Batman's holding that gun, and it looks like, as the camera pans away, that Batman is going to shoot him, and you hear 4 bullets pop, 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 right? And then you turn to see Batman shot around the guy, but he never shot the guy, and he throws the gun in anger in the ocean. Love that scene. Love it. I love it. A lot of people don't like to see Batman holding a gun, but I understood what that scene was supposed to do. Batman doesn't kill. That scene was Batman taking that part of him that wants to kill and killing it. That was perfect. That was great. Another scene I loved is at the very end, we see that there are these people strapped to chairs inside a log cabin in the woods, and they're all have big smiles on their face, and there's one guy and he's just laughing maniacally, uncontrollably, and then it cuts to a character and you don't get to see the mouth, but you see the eyes and the parts of the green hair, and he goes, perfect. And that is, of course, the Joker perfecting his Joker formula, which we will see in season 2. And you know what? I'm excited for it, but I just hope it's done well. As long as they do it well. I think it's not too late to course correct with certain things. But this is this universe, and whether I like it or not, this is how they're running the show. I wish we got to see classic Batman interactions between Jim Gordon, and Barbara. I wish we got to see maybe a little bit of hints for a future Robin, a classic future Robin. I wish we got a little more classic interactions of some of the villains. We get very distinct takes on them, and they're just not classic in the way that I'd like them to be. Maybe in season 2 we can fix that a little bit. But all in all, It's a good detective show. They understand the character of Batman, but they, in my opinion at least, they fail on the world building of Batman. So if you haven't seen the show, go check it out. It's on Amazon Prime. It's only 10 episodes, 24 minutes piece. But that's how I feel about Batman Caped Crusader. Thank you guys for joining me for this episode today. Really appreciate it. And, well, I will see you all in the next one.